Hey YouTube, so here's where I am so far. This is an inner fender weld to the 89 Chevy, and you can see where I welded. Now I didn't bother grinding this off because it's actually hidden by the fender, where the fender attaches underneath the truck, so I'm not going to worry about that. The underside of it came pretty good. You can see that the seam's just about filled right there. It's away a little bit. I'm going to put some seam sealer on here that comes in a tube, caulking tube, that really sticky stuff. And this was painted with POR 15. So what I did was I basically stripped this edge of all the paint and rust. This thing was rusted so bad it was just, falling apart. So I didn't want to buy all new inner fender welds, because I have a lot of other stuff to buy yet. So I just welded this piece on here, and I'll drill the holes then for where the fender goes on. And here's one that I just started working on. So you can see how rusted the piece is that I took out. And this stuff is pretty thin. I mean, you can pretty much bend that up into nothing. Even the stuff that's not rusted is really not that thick. I'd say it's about equivalent to like a stovepipe. So you're looking at possibly as thin as 28 gauge. I'm not sure. It might be 20 gauge, but anyway, what I did was, and if you've watched my other videos, you've seen that I always make a template of stuff. So this is the pattern or template of the edge of the fender well, and they're both the same. So just excuse the camera here for a second. Okay, so that's how that would fit on there, and the holes that are in here are pretty accurate, so all I have to do is transfer them onto the metal piece. So I use this then to cut this pattern to cut pieces out of the steel, and with the real thin stuff I'm able to use this cutter that I got. I bought this thing from Harbor Freight. I had my son pick it up when he was on his way home from work. I think it was either $39 or $59, but either way, I got to tell you, it works very well as long as you're not going on anything too thick. I think it'll cut 12 gauge, but it's sort of hard on it, so probably like 18, 20, 22 gauge, but it works really well. You can see there's like a cutter there that goes back and forth. There's not much to it. I have to laugh how they have it looking like a Milwaukee drill in color, sort of, but it's nowhere near that. But one thing I noticed about down at Harbor Freight, the Chicago Electric stuff is a little bit better than, or even a lot better than, that other Drill Master brand. So stay away from the Drill Master brand of electronic tools or electric tools, because they're really bad. Alright, so anyway, what I did was then I laid this down, and I had just peeled the tape off of it. What I did was I laid the pattern down on top of the good metal, and I taped tape along the edge, along this long side here all the way down, and then along the other side. And after I taped that, you can see some of the tape that's left there. I got to get that off. After I taped that, I marked about 1/4 of an inch in from the edge, and you can see there. Now it's rusted, but that's just surface rust, so I'll finish that up with POR 15. You can see where I ended there, because it's hard to weld through POR 15, so I didn't want to weld through it. So then I cut off this bad piece that's here. This was in here, and these other pieces that are, you can see that's pretty flimsy there. It's eaten through already. So anyway, I cut that off and gave myself 1/4 of an inch all the way around for some welding surface. So now I'm going to tack that on there, and then I'll fully stitch weld it on, and that'll be the end of that. So all I got to do is paint it with the POR 15. Got to get this tape off of here. Let's paint it with the POR 15, and then I'm pretty much done with it. So that's where I'm at right now. I did get the gasoline tank hung up on the frame it's right now I have a blanket on here. I also did these fenders. The inner parts of the fenders, this is where the fender well bolts onto these fenders in here, and they had a little bit of surface rust on them, so what I did was I just coated that. I sandblasted that, and then I coated it down with POR 15. I really like this POR 15. The surfacing is unbelievably hard, especially in this gloss finish. Now the rest of this stuff here, I'll just mist over some white paint on that so it all matches the truck, and try to get rid of that blue. And there's the other fender. Surprisingly, the fenders were not rusted through at the bottoms, so they're actually looking pretty good. I mean, you can see inside where the wheel well does go. That's not rusted through anywhere. It just had a little bit of surface rust on it, and I took, like I say, I sandblasted that off, brushed it out, put the stuff on. They recommend you use a cleaner and then a metal prep, which I did, and then I put that POR 15 on. I'll tell you what, that stuff is nasty. When you use that POR 15, just a little hint, if you don't clean out the inner rim here when you go to put the lid on, you know how like you put the brush in and maybe you wipe it on the side and you get paint inside the rim. If you don't clean that rim out, you are not, and I repeat, not going to get this lid off. So every time I use this, I take a rag and clean this out real clean inside here, so there's no POR 15 in there, because it's that bad. It gets that hard you can't pull it up. In fact, this morning I had the battery mount here. I coated that with POR 15. I had it laying on the workbench, and you can see it literally pulled the steel, the rust, off of the battery holder when I went to pull it off the workbench. That's how hard that stuff grabs. In this case, it was grabbing the paint harder than it was the metal, so I need to go over that again. And it's just a little surface rust, and the POR 15 will seal that. The way this POR 15 is supposed to work is it doesn't let water through. So you want to have that against the steel. If you have paint underneath POR 15, you're defeating your purpose, because that other paint will allow moisture to go through, and that's what causes the rust. So anyway, and I also sort of put an extra bunch on here and left it run down inside the fender a little bit. I wish I had some kind of a sprayer to spray the whole inside here, but it's not rusted at all inside there, so I'm going to let it go. So that's where I am so far. Again, I have it covered, but the gas tank is bolted in place. There's the new straps that I put on. And I put a rubber hose between the frame and the tank, and also a piece of rubber I wrapped all the way around the tank to keep that thing from vibrating and poking any holes in it. So that seemed to come out pretty good. Next thing I'm going to do is, the hood is ready here to be painted, and so are these fenders. They've been primered and sanded down, so they're ready to paint. Got to maybe touch up a little bit on them. And once I get them painted, then I'm going to bring the old frame back in, and hopefully I can start cutting the parts off of that are good. I got to take the torsion bar mounts off the truck, which is going to be a fun little thing. But for today, I'm going to just tack this back on here, then stitch weld it, and then I'll paint it with POR 15. So that's where I am so far with this. So have a good day, guys. See ya.